So, anxiety and stress can be an absolute killer to your creativity. I mean, how can you focus on being creative when your survival mode is just being triggered all the time? And why should you even focus on being creative and bring creativity back into your life when you're in that state? I want to know. I want to find out. And I'm hoping to do that in this episode of Creativity Uncovered. Hello and welcome. My name is Abby Gatling, and I'm on a journey to uncover how everyday people find inspiration, get inventive, and open their imagination. Basically, I want to find how people get creative solutions and then how they use them at home, at work, at play, and everything in between. And my goal for the podcast is that by the end of it, you'll be armed with a whole suite of tried and tested ways to summon creativity the next time that you need it. And today, I'm very excited to be speaking with holistic art therapist, Lisa Cooke. Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Abby.
Yes, I'm excited, and also very excited to speak to someone from within the state. You're just down in the Goldie. I'm at Sunshine Coast. It's
beautiful.
Great. Yeah. Don't often have Australian accents on this podcast, so it's great.
I'm glad to contribute my beautiful accent to the podcast.
Bloody yay!
Yeah,
man. Yeah, well, I'm excited for our chat because I've sort of heard a little bit about holistic art therapy, but I'm not entirely sure of the whole realm of what it covers and why people are engaging with it. So you're the founder of Seven Breaths Art Therapy at the Gold Coast. Tell me, before we jump into it, what is that and how did you get into that business?
Big question. Do we have 10 hours? So basically, art therapy connects you back with your creativity. I found out that it's missing in our lives. It's something we kind of put at the bottom of the list. And it's something that's very misunderstood. I feel like we're kind of taught in school, if we are, not like the great artists or we don't get A's in our artwork, then we are not creative and it's not worth pursuing. And that kind of sticks with people. People kind of feel somewhere along the line, someone told them they weren't creative or they were compared to a sibling or a relative. And creativity kind of just, gets pushed to the side as like a waste of time or why bother? And I'm finding more and more people are challenging that and they're getting curious about their creativity. And for me and the way I deliver art therapy, it helps people nurture their creativity. So it's done in a very safe space. It's also about self-reflection. So a lot of my work is about reflecting on your inner world while you're creating, because there's not many modalities that we can do in a doing sense where we can self-reflect in that way. So a lot of my programs are really about that self-reflection, self-development and growth. So it kind of bridges the gap between self-awareness and what's actually going on for us internally. Sometimes that's really hard for us to get a handle on. We kind of know that we're stressed or we know that we have anxiety or we know that we're not happy with our life, but we don't know where to start. And I find art and creativity is that little bit that bridges that gap and helps us to get clear around what it is that we want in our life. Art therapy also helps get rid of that inner critic. We all have that negative mindset when we create. The perfectionist is another huge one that I work with. And I always say how we do art is how we do life. So if we are stuck in perfection when we create, then we're doing that in our life. If we're stuck in judgment and self-criticism, we're doing that in our life. If we're comparing to everyone else, saying, oh, I'm not good enough, we're doing that in our life as well. So for me, I find the art therapy that I deliver just helps people have more self-awareness around themselves and get to know themselves on a deeper level.
Yeah. So it sounds like a bit of inner work, and I want to talk about that a little bit. But I mean, how did you get into this in the first place? Because it's quite a niche area.
It is. And I was someone who thought that I wasn't creative. I think that's probably a really big disclaimer to put out there that I grew up thinking, yeah, I wasn't good at art. School taught me that pretty much. You know, I would get C's in my artwork and thinking, okay, well, I'm not very good at that. My mum was a very good sketch artist, so she was a fabulous artist. Didn't do anything with it, but was very, very good at it. My sister was also a very good artist and is a good artist. And I kind of felt compared to that. I couldn't sketch and I couldn't do what they did. So I thought that I wasn't creative. High school was a big one, you know, come year 11 when art starts to get quite hard. I started getting D's. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm absolutely not creative. So I had all these stories that were kind of ringing in my mind that I wasn't creative. So I let it go. And then fast forward, my daughter started having really bad anxiety and panic attacks. And the one thing that calmed her down was creativity. And I always created with my kids. I love to do, you know, messy art with them and create with them. And I thought, wow, there's something in this. You know, I could actually see it calming down her nervous system. I could see her expressing in while she was creating where she couldn't have those words when I asked her directly. So it got me curious. I thought, wow, I really want to know what the tie is between art and expression and what is creativity anyway? You know, that was the kind of questions I was asking myself. So I decided to look into that, and then art therapy popped up. And it just kept, you know, I think when you're meant to do something, it keeps coming into your awareness. And I just started hearing about, you know, even holistic art therapy was, you know, combining my two favorite worlds, everything holistic. It was kind of already making its way into my life. So I studied an art therapy diploma, learning exactly that. What is creativity? And basically started this massive healing journey on healing my creativity and nurturing it and healing parts of myself that I couldn't have uncovered without that creativity process. So I started to create every day to do this diploma. You're your first client. And so I was going through all the motions of creating. And at the beginning, I was very nervous. A paintbrush scared me like you wouldn't believe. I used my fingers a lot. It was almost like I had to go back to kindergarten. I had to use crayons and pastels and really feel into my artwork. And then gradually it just sort of built up, and I realized how much it lit me up. I realized how much I love to create and the freedom it was giving me to express myself. And it's almost like some veil got lifted, and I really connected in with the power of creativity doing that diploma. And, you know, I went to do that to help my daughter, but it ended up helping me. It helped me so much to really connect in with who I truly am, almost like it helped me tell my story. So I did that, and then it exploded into my life, and I could not get it out of my mind. It went with me everywhere. I started to see shapes and colors differently, and it really propelled me onto a different way of living, basically.
Wow. Wow. I love that journey where you know, you're exploring this to help your daughter, but then you're inadvertently sort of helping yourself as well.
Yeah.
But coming at it from two different angles, you know, creativity for your daughter to help her through anxiety, but for you to kind of help re-find your creativity. So,
Yeah. And
uh,
heal.
and heal. Yes. So are those the types of people, or like, are those the typical things that you see when people come to you for art therapy?
I feel people are curious when they come to me. A lot of people think it's an art class. So you do get creative people coming. Um, I the majority of people are just curious, very much like I was. What is art therapy? What is this anyway? And I combine meditation with art therapy too. So I have a lot of people curious about meditation and how that can benefit them. So the typical people that I feel I attract that come in to see me are either on a healing journey, like I described as I was. They're looking for ways to express themselves. So having trouble with expression is probably one of the biggest things that most people have without knowing it. Expressing how you're truly feeling. Being vulnerable is another one. Coming into your heart, because you need to come into your heart to create. If we create in our head, it won't connect. Nothing flows from there. So I'm a big advocate for coming into the heart. And I feel like a lot of people are hearing that calling at the moment to explore themselves more and get curious. So I think a lot of people come to me not knowing what to expect. Maybe they saw something that they just, like me, you doing it for your children, or you're doing it for somebody else, or maybe you're doing it because you know that you have work to do and maybe nothing else is working, but you remembered that creativity made you happy when you were younger. Or for me, when I started healing, I remember thinking, what made me happy when I was younger? And in my early 20s, I dabbled in meditation, and it was the happiest I ever was in my life. And I got in the way and I stopped doing it. So I connected back into that. And I knew I loved to create. I remember the freedom of creating when I was a child. So I went back into that. So I feel like a lot of the times people are being called to go back to what brings them joy and start exploring that.
Yeah. So how do you combine meditation with art? How does that work?
So, for me, that's how we get into the heart. So the best way to come into the heart is through the breath. If we're stuck in the doing of our mind, so, just we are predominantly left-hand brained, conditioned to be in our left-hand brain all the time. So when we stop to create, it feels foreign. We have thoughts like, this is a waste of time. You've got so many other things to do. All the to-do lists start rattling off and we can't relax. So for me, with every session, whether it's a private session or whether it's a workshop, we meditate. So it's a 7 breaths meditation, hence the name, where we go in and we take 7 breaths really deeply into our body. And a lot of the time I'll do guided meditation depending on the focus of the session. And it really just helps people to connect in with themselves. The breath is so powerful. Another thing that we do, normally we don't even think about the actual power of just taking a deep breath. And so many people, I feel when they come, I can feel the tightness, the anxiousness, the busy, the doing on. They always say, oh, I'm so busy. And then we do the meditation and you just feel the whole room drop. It's just that letting go. I'm with my breath, I'm with my heart, and then we create. And creating from that space is so much better for our nervous system, so much better for our mental capacity to allow our body to rest. And when we rest and when we're at peace and when we're connected, the creativity creates itself. It just flows. So it's almost like bursting. It's ready to come out. I do a lot of work too with mindset. So talking back to your inner critic. One of my favorite sayings is, I am imperfectly perfect. And I get participants to sort of say that when they feel that inner critic kicking in, or they think, oh, that flower is not perfect, or whatever we're doing. They all go imperfectly perfect. I'm like, good, they're getting it. Because we are imperfectly, that's what creates us. That's who we are. We're not meant to be perfect. We're not meant to be robotic. Our imperfections are our uniqueness and our beauty. And by expressing them, we're teaching each other. So I feel like a lot of the time when people come together to create in that way, we're all learning off each other. That's why I don't like giving too much instruction, because if you allow your own creativity to come out, you're exercising that muscle to make decisions, to know what colors you love, to remember things that brought you joy and allow them to come out onto the paper. Not so much, this is what we're drawing today, everybody. It's more about your own creativity and what you want to express. A lot of art therapy is around expression. You know, who are you? That's a big question. And we go straight into our head, right? Oh, well, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm an employee, I'm this, I'm that. But what is the essence of you? Are you courageous? Are you brave? You know, that comes out in your art. And that almost helps people remember their true qualities, not just the superficial surface stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned a few times that it's sort of going back to what brings you joy and, you know, what brought you joy as a child. What, like, do people who go into art therapy have to have that really strong link to, I thought I was creative as a child, or can they just spontaneously get into it as an adult?
I feel it's open to everybody, because if you asked me, creativity probably wasn't in art for me. It was more, I was very good at plays and being a character and writing. So I would have thought art therapy wasn't for me because it's art. You know, I definitely loved painting and I loved creating, and I do love that. But it wasn't the predominant creativity part in me that was wanting to reconnect, or that I remembered as a child. It was more the character in me. But by creating art and drawing and asking myself the right questions, I remembered all those parts of me that I'd kind of left behind and dismissed. So it's not just for artists or people that love to create art, it's for anybody that wants to remember their creative expression. So just say you're a brilliant cook, and years and years ago, you used to be able to cook and you would make all these beautiful meals, but just say one day someone said they didn't like it and you went, oh, okay, I'm not a good cook. And then you stopped cooking. And then art will help you to remember that creativity that's flowing while you're drawing a picture or having a memory. And it will just pop in. Remember that time when you loved to do cooking? You should do that again. That's what comes through when we create. It's almost like we open up this world that comes naturally to us again. And we're remembering all those things that brought us joy. It could be gardening. It could be, I don't know, it could be anything that allows your creative expression to be heard. We all want to be seen, heard, and acknowledged. But what does that look like? And I feel art therapy allows you to explore that in a safe environment. A lot of the time, it was our caregivers or our teachers that told us that that's not the way we should do things. And it's about remembering but nurturing those parts of ourselves again. And I find that's what art therapy does. It just allows you time to sit and hear yourself, sit and feel. You know, how many times do we actually sit and ask ourselves, how do we feel right now? What color is that? What does that look like? What shape is that? What makes me happy? We don't do that. So I find, again, it's just bridging that gap. Art and creativity bridges that gap between us and who we truly are, who we want to be.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily, I mean, the medium is art, but it's not necessarily about creating something. It's about having doing something that allows you to let your mind go elsewhere. Is that
Pretty much,
right?
yeah. So it's opening a completely different section of your mind as well, of your brain. It's your right hand brain where all your creativity lies. So when we're in our left hand brain of, work, 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 do, it takes a while for that right hand brain to come in and soften. And the only way that we can do that is by relaxing. So relaxing our mind, relaxing our thoughts, relaxing our body. So just by creating in that space, you're teaching yourself how to how to come into that ease and grace when you create, but you're also learning how to do that in your life.
Mm,
It teaches you so much. Art teaches us so much about how we're doing life. Because if we can't sit still and we're agitated and we're wiggly and we've, got all these doubts going on in our mind, then it's teaching us that that's what's going on for us all the time. If we're highly critical and judgmental of everything that we create, we are doing that in our life. When we can stop doing that when we create, we stop then doing that in our life. It almost sheds a light on all these aspects of us that are on autopilot. And
mm,
that's the left hand brain. It's very automatic, it's very robotic, very in the doing of life, where the creative side is more gentle, it's softer, it's quieter, but there is so much strength in our creativity because it's who we truly are above, anything else that we're told or taught. It's our knowing. It's our knowing of who we truly are. That's what comes out onto the paper, and then it spreads. It's like a ripple effect, and
mm,
then it comes out into your life.
mm. What interested me before is that you sort of mentioned that this is kind of a group-based therapy. There's multiple people going through it at the same time. And I was thinking whether that be quite a vulnerable experience for people because you're working through this stuff, if you are coming in with anxiety or steep levels of stress, working through that in a group setting, is that do people find that uncomfortable or how do you manage that sort of situation?
Yeah. So for me, as someone who has anxiety too, going into a group setting with that would have scared the daylights out of me. And I would have avoided it like the plague, like, no, no, no. So what I've done is I create a space where there's no more than 5 people. And I do not take any more than that. So in each group, there's only 5 people, and I do a one-off workshop, but then I also do a 4-week workshop and a 6-week workshop. So you're with the same people over and over. So if you are a little bit nervous at the start, by the time you've finished, you kind of just get to know everybody, and everybody feels safe and connected in that way. Definitely, if more vulnerable feelings come up, that's usually when people will move to one-on-one. And I'm pretty good at picking that up. I have pretty good spider senses that pick that up if that's needed. But I've never had anybody ever feel overwhelmed or not safe enough in that group setting. I feel like it's providing us time to come back as community. It's providing us time to hear each other speak and hold space for each other. There's
Mm,
so much wisdom in shared vulnerability. Again, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's something that should be shared and spoken about. So to do that, I always go first with my shares, and I'm very open and very vulnerable with everything that I share in all my workshops. And I feel that gives permission for anyone that wants to do the same. It's just done in a very organic, different way than a typical big group workshop.
yeah.
And then people that are really struggling will always do one-on-one. People that have high anxiety. Of course, that would terrify, even 5 people is terrifying. I get that. So yeah, they always come to me one-on-one.
Yes, wow. Just as you were saying, it sort of reminded me of we had someone on previously talking about how to get young men to open up about their feelings and express themselves. And quite often like there's a quite a big difference between women expressing themselves and men expressing themselves, is that men are more sort of guarded and they need to be doing something else before they open up and talk. So just as you're saying, doing art therapy will help people just become comfortable and start to chat about these things. They were
Yeah.
doing a program for young men and boys to go out fishing or to go kayaking, and that was their way of opening up. I
I
just think
love that.
it's interesting. It's kind of like busy hands
Yeah.
gates for like a light brain or open conversation.
Absolutely. And I remember they said always do something physical with him. So go for a walk or talk to him while I'm driving the car, so and it worked. It absolutely, and it works. He's 22 now and it still works. If we go for a walk, you can't shut him up. Blah, 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 blah. But ask directly and it's just, oh yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
There's nothing that comes out. But in saying that, another huge thing that I teach is that for our men to come out and feel safe with expressing their feelings and their emotions, the women have to go first. I find that we're living in a world where the women aren't doing that. They're not expressing their feelings. They're not speaking up when they should be. They're not being vulnerable. All those things that come more naturally to women, we're not doing them. So if we're not doing them, how the heck are our men and our boys supposed to feel safe expressing their emotions and their feelings? They're not going to. So I always say that we have to go first. We have to go first for our men. If we can be vulnerable and we can share in an authentic, real space, our men are going to see that. Our boys are going to see that and they're going to go, oh, okay, well, I can do that too. But right now, a lot of women are guarded. Our hearts are guarded. Our expression is guarded. And a lot of the time it's because of being hurting, and we don't feel safe. So it is about that expression, getting it out. It's like we're all pressure cookers. And I find that art and creativity is 100% the best way to start expressing. Nobody knows what your painting means except for you. There's no words attached to it. Or if there is, you can put the words underneath and create over the top. I love doing mandalas for that. Mandalas just using shapes and patterns. Nobody knows what that means except for you. And you could be expressing anything. You could be expressing really vulnerable memories on paper, but nobody knows that story by looking at that mandala, but you know that story. And it just feels good to put it somewhere. And then, you build up the courage to then talk about that mandala. You're talking about the mandala and you're allowing yourself to be expressed.
Mm.
And I find that's what happens in these workshops. People will start talking about things they don't normally talk about because they've almost taken the edge off by putting it somewhere. It's on the paper. Now I can talk about it. And I've had men join my workshops, not very many, but the ones that have absolutely blown me away with how articulate and expressive they are. And every time I still sit there and think, yeah, it's coming. I feel like men are ready for this too. They're ready to be expressed, and nearly all of them remember things that brought them joy.
That's cool. Do people quite often revisit their artwork afterwards?
Well, do you mean when they go home or?
Yeah, either when they go home or in subsequent sessions. Do you ever go back and go, now, what were you feeling then? Are you feeling that now? Or do we need to continue this or
Um,
start afresh?
a lot of the time, no, we never really go back and revisit the actual artwork, but we'll go back and revisit the sessions. So I will always do a recap of each session and then find out what level of growth that they've had, really, because it's all about growth. When we grow through whatever we've gone through, then it's no longer an issue for us, right? But if it keeps repeating or we have continuous stories repeating, then we've just got a little bit more work to do. And when we've been a certain way for so long, we can't expect in, an hour that it's all going to disappear and we're going to be fine now. It's a process, and it's just like any healing process. It takes time, but we have to choose that. We are responsible for our own healing. Nobody else is. So for me, I find I can pretty much tune into what's still on repeat and what still needs a bit more work. So we don't actually revisit, but we will definitely continue to express. So I do that by asking really important questions that we don't normally ask ourselves, and then get people to express about that. And I find that that is also another thing we don't do. We don't ask ourselves questions. We don't ask ourselves, what makes me happy? What brings me joy? What do I want in my life? How do I want to feel when I wake up? We don't do that. We just think, oh, I've got to do more to have more to be more, and it stops there. Or, I have a job, I make money, I buy a house, a car, and I go on holiday, and that's it. In between all that, we don't ask, are you happy? It's those quality questions that we need to ask ourselves to allow ourselves to be heard, to self-inquire, to get curious about us.
I definitely think there's more of a focus on that recently. When I say recently, I mean post 2020 and everything that happened then.
Yeah.
People are starting to realize like this treadmill of life is not actually amazing. Why are we working so hard? Why are we spending so much time in the office? Why are we doing all these things that don't necessarily bring us joy?
Yeah.
And I guess
where do those beliefs come from?
Yeah.
Where did they start? What pressure do we put on ourselves? There's that too. There's so much pressure that everyone puts on themselves. Or there's limiting beliefs. There's self-doubt. I'm not enough. I am not worthy. All those thoughts and feelings that are attached to that come into play as well with how we're living our life. And monitoring our thoughts is a huge one. Just monitoring your thoughts for a day will absolutely blow your mind. Because when you start to hear what you say to yourself and the things that come through is crazy, and it's on repeat, and it's happening in the background without us even acknowledging it or seeing it. It all comes down to our beliefs and what we're being taught, and whether we're going to change that or not, whether we're going to challenge that or not. And truly know what's best for us. We know what's best for us. Stop seeking outside of ourselves. And I feel that's what art and creativity does, because it's coming from you. Nobody's telling you what to do, and you're exercising that muscle. Oh, I actually have ideas. I actually have thoughts and dreams that I've forgotten about even. So, yeah, it's almost knowing what life do you want to live? Do you want to keep continuing in the hamster wheel, or can you see a different life for you? Can you imagine a different life for you?
Oh, so good. I think if anyone is listening to the podcast at the moment and thinking some of these questions, perhaps art therapy is the way to go, just to kind of help accelerate that thought process and really figure out what will make you happy, and also anxiety and things like that. It seems like this could be a really nice way just to help with the healing with that as well. So
Absolutely.
yeah, thank you, Lisa, for sharing all of that today. I'm definitely inspired to find a local art therapist.
Do it.
Or have a trip to the Gold Coast anyway.
Yeah, come see me. I'd love to have you.
Yeah, and if anyone is interested, well, I'll pop all Lisa's details in the show notes, so you can check her out and see if you can get involved as well. So thank you for joining me, and thank you for everyone who has tuned in to this episode of Creativity Uncovered. If you enjoyed this episode, please do give us a like or share it with a friend. I think it's a really important topic to talk about today. And if this episode has inspired you in any way, I'd love to hear from you. Please get in touch, let me know. And until next time, take care. If you've made it this far, a huge thank you for your support and tuning into today's episode. Creativity Uncovered has been lovingly recorded on the land of the Cubby Cubby people, and we pay our respect to elders past, present, and emerging. This podcast has been produced by my amazing team here at Crisp Communications, and the music you just heard was composed by James Gatling. If you liked this episode, please do share it around and help us on our mission to unlock more creativity in this world. You can also hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episode releases.